did you come to Britain?
Oh, I completed my education. I mean, I'm a product of totally, as I call, indigenous education. Like, I studied from school to college to university in Pakistan. And I started work there as a journalist. I started with one of the leading papers of the country in 1983, 84 as a trainee, and very quickly did other things, reporting, etc., and changed jobs. So by about 92, 93, I was a byline reporter, and I was covering serious stories, politics, defense, war and peace issues, conflict resolution, etc., and stringing for the BBC. I said yes to the BBC, and I joined the BBC as a producer in 1994 in the Urdu service, which is the language which is spoken and understood. I mean, Pakistan has 4 or 5 regional languages, but Urdu is sort of the string which holds, all the languages together, because people from the 4 different provincial regions and dialects and their own languages communicate with each other in Urdu.
When you went back to live in Pakistan, how much had it changed compared to your childhood?
It had changed a great deal. There were 2 things. I think because in our family, I mean, we weren't rich, but we weren't poor either, in the sense that my father had a decent job which enabled him to educate all of us well, and we were sort of aware of the world. But when you go back there, in the post-satellite television and internet world, I mean, just imagine the difference in the 2 worlds. When I left Pakistan, there was no internet, and there were very few mobile phones. By the time I get back to Pakistan, in a poor country, there are 3 to 4 million people connected to the internet at that point in time, and now people say that the figure's up to 30 million. And the number of phones, mobile phones, I think is a multiple mobile phone connections, not the phone sets, is a multiple of hundreds of million. So I think the rate at which people were being informed about the world and Pakistan itself was staggeringly different. On the other hand, the downside was that because of geopolitical situation in Pakistan, and I'm sure that Pakistan is always in the news for what many Pakistanis see is for the wrong reason, which is terrorism and intolerance and maltreatment of women and minorities and religious and ethnic and so on.
Now, tens of thousands of people in Pakistan have rallied in support of schoolgirl Malala Yousafzai, who was shot by the Taliban. Prayers were held during the demonstration in the country's largest city of Karachi. The Taliban says it shot the 14-year-old because her campaign for education was pro-Western. Malala's doctors say she's in a critical stage after part of her skull was removed to help treat swelling in her brain. Abbas Nasir, former editor of Pakistan's newspaper Dawn. Mr. Nasir, thank you very much for joining us this evening. Looking at the pictures of the crowds, the thousands of people who turned out to support her in Karachi, do you think this was a wake-up call that Pakistan needed?
Julie, I'd like to believe it's like that, because it's been a long time coming, and I think the outpouring of rage and anger and support for Malala and the anger over the incident was quite spontaneous and countrywide. But the problem with the traumatized nation like Pakistan is, completely overwhelmed, overrun by suicide bombings and one conflict or the other, that resilience of even this resistance, is not very permanent. So although I'd like to believe, and I've written about it, that this could mark a turning point, but doubts linger in my mind because we've just let it fester for years and years.
Finally, in 3 words, how would you define Pakistan?
Interesting, challenging, diverse, and allow me another word, explosive.
Okay, thank you.